the reasons that men in particular struggle is that I just want someone to see how fucking hard it is sometimes. Like, this really, really sucks sometimes, or maybe even a lot of the time. Just see it, please. Just like pat me on the back and go, that's not easy. And dude, you crushed it for getting through that. And it's an odd kind of appreciation, awareness, recognition. It's like a gratitude from somebody else. Like, they've sort of inserted it into us. They've hit us with a tranquilizer dart that's been filled with being seen. It's like, yeah, that was tough. Sorry you went through that. Congratulations for doing it. Like, thank you.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to the Modern Mentality Podcast. If you don't know, I am your host, Kyle. On this podcast, talk about mindset talks for men, chasing an all-around better version of themselves. So welcome to the podcast. Today's episode, I have a very special guest, Brian Sachetta, owner and author, Get Out of Your Head, over 500 plus 5-star reviews on Amazon. You can find his books on Amazon or simply discover more about him visiting getoutofyourhead.com website. Brian graduated from Boston College, degree in management and computer science. After school, took his talents to use as both a consultant and writer. The series Get Out of Your Head parallels between computer systems and human mind. He delivers readers practical strategies for overcoming anxiety and depression. Chat today is about how high performance anxiety is killing people's potential. We're going to dive into discipline versus emotional suppression, how to build real control under pressure, why high-performing men deal with anxiety more than people think, what are some practical frameworks to stop overthinking, 5 rapid-fire questions that I ask all my guests. The show runs about 40 minutes, so pay attention. I don't want you guys to miss anything. At the end, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like. It really helps video out, and it also helps whatever streaming platform you're listening. This is a up-and-coming podcast, so the more people that like it, the newer people that like it, it's really going to help everything grow. Subscribe if you haven't already, if you want to see more, hear more, and see more guests that I bring on. Try to bring you guys an episode every single week to deliver mindset talks for men chasing an all-around better version of themselves. Hope you guys enjoy this episode with Brian Sachetta, and I'll see you guys in the next one. We are going to get out of our heads with Brian Sachetta, episode 13. Who is Brian Sachetta? I'm saying your last name right, correct? All right, perfect. Just wanted to make sure. He is the owner and author of Get Out of Your Head, which has over 500 5-star plus reviews. 4.5 technically, but I wanted to round that up. You can find his books on Amazon or simply discover more about him by visiting getoutofyourhead.com. He graduated from Boston College with a degree in management and computer science. After school, he took his talents to use as both a consultant and writer. His series, Get Out of Your Head, parallels between computer systems and human mind. He delivers readers practical strategies for overcoming anxiety and depression. Today's topic is about high performance anxiety is killing your potential. And we're also talking about something that a lot of ambitious men experience, but nobody wants to basically talk about, which is, again, high performance anxiety. So without further ado, Brian, thank you very much for taking time out of your day, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. So first topic I'd like to go through is discipline versus emotional suppression. So in your opinion, why do men fear vulnerability so much?
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
I'm pausing just a little bit because we could talk for hours about this. You know, there's so much to go on about there. I think probably a good starting point is social programming, right? Around the idea of we've all been told for many years of our lives that, you know, men don't experience emotions, or they shouldn't feel certain ways. They shouldn't feel as though they are, you know, not measuring up, as though they are experiencing sadness, loss, grief, anxiety, all of those things. So somebody who is afraid to be vulnerable is somebody who is, listening to that social commentary and taking it very seriously and saying, you know, everything that I'm hearing, even if it's on a subconscious level, I've grown up and I've heard those messages, and I'm not supposed to feel this way. If you think about vulnerability, right, for any person, a man or a woman, it is challenging where, like, you are essentially putting yourself out on the line,
Right.
and you are risking some form of rejection, whether it's physical, relational, emotional, spiritual, whatever. And that's scary for any person. So I think it starts with those two things, which is, again, nobody likes to be rejected. There's, less than 1% of the population, those folks who are just like, bring it on, I'll do it, whatever and they probably still don't love it, but they just know that they need to do it. And the other piece is just the fact that we've been conditioned into these things. So it's hard. I want to put that on the table and say it's hard for anybody to be vulnerable, but at the same time, like, it does get a little cheesy, but it's like that is one of the pathways through toward getting out of your head eventually, and dealing with some of your negative emotions, is understanding that, like, you can say how you feel, you can state who you are, you can be who you are, as long as you do it in a confident way. Like, you don't want to just go and grovel to everybody that you see on the street, but you can do that, and eventually you will find people that resonate with your message.
Yeah, no, absolutely. How emotional suppression hurts performance, basically? Like, how do you think?
Yeah, I mean, anytime that you are, we hear the word authenticity be thrown a lot around on social media and the internet and all of that. And even though it gets a little over glamorized or whatever, it's still, there's an important message there, which is to say that if you are not being authentic, if you are not expressing your actual emotions, then you're prioritizing something else, and you're probably not acting, performing, living in the way that you want to, right? So if I am suppressing my emotions, if I'm, and I like to use myself as examples because I'm the one who has lived my life and I know these stories well, and I think people can relate to them as well. As, okay, so if I go to a networking event, or I go on a date, or I give a public speech, and I try to pretend that I'm not nervous, and I try to pretend as though anxiety is not flooding through me, when in a lot of these past situations it has been, it's going to look really weird, right? So I'm suppressing those feelings. And then what might be happening on the other side of the table, or, in the audience, is folks are like, what's up with this dude? Is he okay? Like, I don't quite get it, and there's just something that's missing there. There's some gap, right? And the piece is just that you are living and acting in this way that is not authentic, and they can sense it, but they can't always understand exactly what that feeling is, right? So sometimes you'll see, and it's funny, right? Not to pick on anybody, any class of people or age of people or anything like that, but like, I'm in my upper 30s now, and I look back at, like, the 22-year-old kids, and especially myself when I was 22, and I'm like, we had so much like false bravado and so much false confidence. And now you can see it. Like when I talk to not every 22-year-old, but I talk to some, especially ones for whom I see my old self in them. And I'm like, they don't realize the emotions that they are suppressing. I can smell it just because I do a lot of work in this space. But when you're the one who is not being authentic, but also doing the suppression and not admitting it to yourself, you're like, nah, dude, I'm fine. Like, I'm totally confident, while you're slurring your words, or like, sweating beads across your forehead and all that. So it's important to just like, I guess a phrase that comes to mind here is like, people will say, you're only as sick as your secrets. And that could mean sick in the psychological sense at large. It could also just mean in the interaction that you're having at that moment, right? Is like, there's something off, where if I present myself as like, I go on this date and I'm like, nah, I'm totally cool, what's going on with you? Like, the woman is usually like, this dude is strange, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but he is, whereas, look, you're not, again, going back to that vulnerability pieces, you're not always going to be accepted if you do risk rejection. But if you get to the date, or you go to the public speech, and you're like, hey, sorry, just give me a quick second, I'm actually kind of nervous right now, the other person is like, oh, I understand what that person's going through, I see the human in them, and I'm going to give them some grace. And again, maybe not 100 times out of 100 will they do that, but you at least allow yourself for that to happen. Whereas if you're pretending as though you're calm, cool, collected, confident, when you're really not, everybody's going to sense that, and it's going to be awkward.
Oh, absolutely. So for yourself, what are some of the ways that you have practiced and have worked for you that have basically allowed you to stop panicking? For example, when you're saying you're doing the speeches, I'm sure when you first started, maybe this never happened to you, but if when you first started, maybe it's happening now, but regardless, if you ever panicked during that type of situation, was there anything that you basically said? I know originally you said that you basically were like fake it till you make it in a way. So is that like a strategy that you applied, or do you have any type of strategies that basically made you stop panicking and allowed you to control yourself, so that way people basically weren't like what you were just saying, which is like, well, this guy's acting weird?
Yeah, this is another question that I could give a 2-hour answer to.
Yeah.
And there's so many different levels to it, you know? So, like, if I think about, like, okay, let's say somebody is going to give a speech tonight and there's not really a lot they can do. You know what I mean? Like, they can't go to therapy tonight. You know, they
Right.
can't read a bunch of books tonight. But what they can do is they can do some in the moment strategies that might help, right? So, specifically, you know, if somebody is approaching that speech, and I've done this myself as well, is one, you could, you know, get up and go for a walk, right? You've got a lot of emotion and energy channeling or flowing through your bloodstream in the form of adrenaline and cortisol. Those are stress hormones, right? When we sit down and we just allow our minds to ruminate, to cycle over the scary thing that we're doing, we get stuck in a groove, in a bad groove, right? Where we're spiraling over worst case scenario outcomes and all that kind of thing. When we get up and go for a walk, when we move our bodies, we send a signal back to our brains to say, like, okay, you know what? I've got this on some level. We don't have to keep thinking about this again and again and again. And there's some physiology behind that, which is essentially, right, like when you get in that cycle, when you get stuck there, the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, hijacks the part of your brain that is responsible for critical thinking, planning, emotional regulation, and all that. That's called the prefrontal cortex. If you go way back and you think about evolutionary psychology and how the body evolved over time and whatnot, right? Like all these anxiety mechanisms, fear in the body, all of that is designed to keep us safe and out of harm's way. And so if you go all the way back hundreds of thousands of years and you're like, what did we have to, you know, run from, or what did we need to be safe from? It was hungry predators out in the wild, right? And so over time, if you look at evolutionary psychology, it would suggest that the body wants to stay in motion, right? Because when we move our bodies, we're sending that signal to basically say, there is or there was a tiger in front of me, whether it's a real one or a perceived one, and I am now moving away from it, right? I am taking the hormonal stress signals that you're sending me in the form of adrenaline, cortisol, and I'm doing the thing that you're asking me to do. I am moving my body, I'm moving myself away from this threatening situation. So when it comes to those speeches, when it comes to those dates, whatever it is that scares you, if you need an in the moment tactic, get up, go for a walk, maybe run around the block, you know, kind of free up some of that negative and anxiety laced energy. Second one would just be doing some deep breathing patterns, right? So a lot of people will talk about box breathing. The simplest way to think about it is there are 4 sides to a box, and therefore there are 4 measures to this breathing technique. So you're going to breathe in for a certain number of seconds, let's say 5 to 8 seconds, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And then you're going to hold for a similar amount of time. And then you're going to exhale for a similar amount of time. So that's 1, 2, 3 there. And then you're going to hold again. And that's the 4th side of the box, if you will. So you're building that proverbial box in your mind. The idea is just to have some structure and rhythm around it, to be like, okay, if I'm really nervous right now, I'm probably hyperventilating or not breathing that well in general. If I become methodical and I slow the breath down, I'm going to send another one of those signals back to my brain to say, it's okay, I've got this. I don't need to be in that panic mode. I can chill, and we can slow down the physiology in general, which in turn helps with the mental things as well. And just to round this out, right? So like those are in the moment strategies that you could use if you're like preparing for that speech today. But the reason that I say this could be a 2-hour or longer discussion on just this topic is, okay, so how do I deal with panic in my own life? How do I prevent that from coming up so much anymore, right? I hate to say it because it's not sexy whatsoever, and it doesn't sell books. It doesn't, you know, move podcasts or anything like that. But a lot of this stuff takes time, you know? And what I mean by that is, okay, you know, we all want that silver bullet. We all want to say, I deal with panic attacks. How do I get rid of them tonight or tomorrow or next weekend? look, again, you can use those in the moment tactics to manage and try to get by, but the real breakthroughs, the real things that are going to help you persist over time and manage that condition overall are those larger ones, right? So that's like going to therapy and working with a good therapist who you trust and understanding who you are, what your mind is like, what are some of the inner battles that you face, why does the anxiety come up, what are the root causes, maybe it's something in your past, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's something else. Those are the things, right, that take a longer amount of time, and some of that is also just living your life. And this is the real unsexy part is, when you're 22 and you're like, oh my God, like if I have a panic attack, I'm going to die and it's going to be so awful. Like, yes, it's going to feel that way. I promise you, it's going to be horrendous. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat that. At the same time, right, if you're like, oh, I got a job interview and I'm so worried that I'm going to bomb it and all that, it's like, again, this is not sexy at all, but what's going to happen is over time, it's going to take a decade or whatever, is you're going to fail in a lot of places of your life. And those are not going to be fun experiences whatsoever. And nobody should be glamorizing those things. Yet over time, they are going to show you what is actually important in your life, right? And when you have enough of those failures and you actually survive and they're not horrendous traumas, right? You're eventually going to build up enough evidence to be like, I'm putting these things up on a pedestal. There's no reason to do that. I've failed enough. Whatever. I'm not going to enjoy another failure, but I'll get over it, right? And so that is my 2 to 3 hour answer condensed into 6 minutes.
No, that was honestly outstanding. That was an excellent answer, and I couldn't agree more, because that's what I'm trying to do with this podcast. Obviously, when I first started, I said it was episode 13, so that's kind of newer. But that's what I'm trying to do, is just trying to be real, trying to be raw, authentic, and I mostly focus on like the fitness side of things, and that's how I can definitely relate when it comes to like, it's not an overnight process. It definitely takes time, and the body and the mind are connected. So it definitely, yeah, at the end of the day, it takes time. And that was just an excellent answer. So I just want to say thank you very much for that. That was perfect. Just want to segue into the next one. Why high performing men deal with anxiety more than people think. So 3 biggest reasons in today's world why men speak up dealing with anxiety. And the reason I said that is because I didn't want to put the opposite, which is why they don't speak up, So I wanted to basically say, the intention with this question was to have someone being like, oh, okay, it truly is okay to speak up, basically. I mean, I know people have heard that, but I just wanted to give another example of that.
Yeah, and it definitely is. I think the challenge, right, is that there's a big difference between saying that it's okay and then that person actually doing it, right?
Oh, yeah,
it's sort of like performance versus real and raw and vulnerability, that big word again, Mm-hmm. And I, with all these conversations, I like to be as honest as I can. And, I'm not sitting here from a place of perfection and I have it all figured out and whatnot. I've been honest throughout my journey to say, like, there have been a lot of times where it's been hard for me to speak up, and yeah. Honestly, one of the biggest assets for me, and again, I just speak about myself because those are the stories that I know, and I hope that folks can relate to those, is one of the biggest assets has been my books, the podcast like this one, and my blog articles. They've given me a nice, safe space to kind of vent these ideas out there, right? Mm-hmm. I would say that, like, look, like, I've got some good relationships in my life. I certainly do. I have some love and support and all that. But I think most people would say that, like, they may have a lot of friends and a good family and all that, but it can be hard to find real spaces of 100% authenticity where you're like, I can say anything that's on my mind and I don't have to worry about this and that and whatever, right? We still live in a society where, let's be honest, we're all subtly judging each other at every turn, And so for me, the books, the podcast, the blog, those have all been good places for me to get these ideas off of my chest and start conversations in a safe and smaller way, right? So then I do a podcast and then I get a text from a friend and they're like, oh, wow, I listened to your podcast. I didn't know you struggle with that, or I'm struggling with this right now, right? So my message is basically just like find any avenue that feels approachable and take that. It doesn't have to be, you getting up on your roof and screaming and saying, I deal with anxiety. Hey, everyone. So it's a really rubber meets the road kind of thing in saying that it's very challenging. There used to be an insane stigma around mental health. It is improving, but there still is a stigma there. And even though we've got that improvement, there's still a gap, right? You go on social media and there's that performative nature of like, you can say whatever you want and whatever. It's like at the end of the day, this is still very, very difficult stuff. And I guess to round this out, I would say for anybody that is listening, find that space that is comfortable for you and branch out from there as you see necessary or you see possible, right? So for a lot of folks, the reason why therapy works is you have a trusted relationship with a professional. You go to that person, it is held in confidence. That person cannot, legally tell other people about what you're talking about. You have a contract with that person where it's like, hey, I'm paying you to hold these things in confidence. And if you don't, I'm going to leave. Or, that would be a breach of client-patient confidentiality. I could potentially sue you. You know what I mean? Right? So starting in a small avenue like that, a trusted space, and then branching out from there. And I totally understand and realize that therapy is not accessible, affordable, all those different terms for a lot of people. So I would just say find anything, right? It could be you talk to an AI agent. I'm not saying that everybody should do that. You got to figure out what you're most comfortable with, but it is an option. It is accessible. It is affordable. You could talk to a best friend. You could talk to a guidance counselor. You could talk to a teacher, a professor, all of those different things. The main thing is find that space that feels approachable to you. Start there, and also be willing to be a little bit flexible, right? If you go to somebody and they don't necessarily reciprocate, if they don't pick up what you're putting down, then maybe, right, find somewhere else and try to find a better ear that's going to listen to you a little bit harder. So.
Yeah, baby. Sometimes I just crack open, bucked up, and all my troubles slowly but surely fade away. We're working with 3 different kinds. I was about to show you this flavor, but they have these Walgreens, thank God, fully stocked right now. Absolutely stoked. I prefer bucked up energy drinks over any kind of energy drinks. Currently drinking Miami flavored Rocket Pop Blood Raz. Not new to bucked up, but you're new to me, and you're like, hey, I'm feeling bucked up. Energy drinks, protein, any type of supplement, no limits 23, no space, all caps, lowercase, doesn't matter, hands on, discount, bucked up. Rocket Pop and Miami. Out of these Miami flavor, I don't know how or why, makes me feel more energetic, alert, focused compared to these two. In general, play a huge impact day-to-day life, completely outside the gym. Have a pre-workout, right? Just to drink, substitute a workout. If you're not on Bucked Up, go on Amazon. Use my Amazon link. You have to purchase the product all in the same session. Can't go back in an hour or later that day. It has to be done in the same session. So what I would do, make a list of what you're gonna get, or put it in your cart. You have that, you know what you're gonna get. Click on that link, refill the cart with those. And what does this link do exactly? I don't make any money off of this. Strictly help me a fitness journey. More you buy, more I can upgrade this podcast, quality of content, opening a gym. Have yourself some Bucked Up drinks. And if you're new to me, hello and welcome. My name is Kyle Mara, and I am the host of the Mara Mentality Podcast. I'm assuming you clicked on this other than listen to Matt. You want growth. You want to learn discipline. You want to learn how to just basically better your overall lifestyle. I'm here to help you, my friend. I apologize for being absent the last couple weeks with the episodes. My goal, to episode every single week for you guys. The last couple of weeks, I have not had a guest. Last week, every single day, working on car. Don't ask. It's a lot cheaper that way than bringing it to a mechanic. That's the reason why I haven't had anything really new lately. But just drop in-depth reaction to the first person. Been training ever since November. Watch that fitness side of me. If you're interested in it, I would love to help you. Mara Mentality, episode 12 with Matt Kovac. Enjoy the episode. Okay, perfect. So, in your own opinion, what makes a man high performing? We just talked a lot about, anxiety and, dealing with your thoughts and maybe not necessarily being the most confident. So with this answer, right, I would like it to be just super motivational, just being look, took all this, and if you really want to be super high performing, this is exactly what you got to do? Because I feel like you could really give a solid answer because all of your answers so far have been outstanding.
I appreciate that. All my answers are a little nuanced, and I think this one will be nuanced as well, right? Which
Alrighty.
is we got to break a few things apart. So there is, there's high performance in general, right? Somebody wants to get a lot done, accomplish things, be successful, carve their way in life, live a good life in general, right? It might not necessarily be fly around in a private jet, but it's like provide for their family, provide for their loved ones, do fun things, enjoy their life, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That is a healthy motivation that I hope everybody is striving for. I will say that, in this day and age where things are very expensive, just for example, the cost of a home is very expensive. You can definitely get into a bit of a rut realizing that it's hard, even if you perform well, you might not necessarily like it's hard to hit all those metrics, but let's just for now say that folks are like dialed in, locked in on going to live a good life, going to perform well, going to work hard, do good things with my life. That's awesome, right? That's exciting. And it's the vision of that should pull you forward into doing that work. And also the work that you're doing, we would hope, we can't guarantee. And also, again, you got to do what you got to do, but we would hope that you're doing work that inspires you and that also pulls you forward. So you're like, look, even if I don't get the mansion one day, everything I'm doing is fun. I'm helping people. I'm contributing to society. I'm learning. I'm growing, all of that. And then also, yeah, like I do kind of want that nice car. I do want to be able to go on cool trips with my friends and family and all that. And that should pull you forward as well. Now, there's, again, nothing wrong with any of that, but where we start to bleed into the nuance is around high functioning or high performance anxiety, right? And so a lot of folks who are high performing have a baseline layer of anxiety that is driving that high performance. And so high functioning anxiety or high performance anxiety is not necessarily like a officially designated diagnosis in the DSM. It's more just like, okay, you look at somebody, you talk about their lifestyle, maybe that person's in therapy, whatever. There is that anxiety underneath what they're doing. And it's important to sort of pick that apart and make sure that all of the actions and all of the emotions there are aligned with one another and there for the right reasons. So here's what I mean by that, right? Is like, I was listening to some book a couple years ago, and it was a great line. The guy was like, many of the most successful people in history are actually walking anxiety disorders, right? And what I mean by that, or what I would kind of speak further about that, right, is like high functioning anxiety or high performance anxiety can kind of come in. There's two important things behind it. One is a fear of failure or a fear of not measuring up and not being enough, right? And that, rather than pulling you toward the life you want, that pushes you in the direction of, I can't fail, I can't look bad, I can't look like I don't know what I'm doing, and all of that. It's not the worst thing in the world, but right, like fear as a motivator is a little bit scary. I think in a perfect world, you'd rather be motivated by pure success, pure excitement, and all of that. So the first piece about high performance anxiety is just that, right? Is there is fear underneath that performance, which is saying I'm performing as high as I can because if I don't, I feel like I'm going to look like an idiot. I'm going to look like I'm not enough. I'm not going to be successful. People are going to judge me, that sort of thing. The second piece is that, and this might be more in line with the, hey, all the most successful people are walking anxiety disorders. I don't know. But it is that if you deal with anxiety, high performance can become a great coping mechanism. And what I mean by that is if every day you're like, there's this, low grade hum of fear and anxiety, you're like, you know what? I don't want to sit in this. If I just stay busy, if I just stay focused on my routines, I'm not going to have to listen to the anxiety consciously as much as if I just sat in it, right? And with all things in life, I think, and going back to the thing of saying, hey, we got to make sure that the emotions and the actions are aligned and there for the right reasons, is it's okay if you're like, hey, I have gone to therapy for 20 years. I've picked everything apart. I don't know why my anxiety is there. It might just be my genetics, whatever. And my work, my high performance is a great way for me to deal with that. Then that's great. At the same time, I think for a lot of people, right, is the high performance becomes a bit of a cover up for the anxiety, where it's like if you sit down and are honest with yourself and you go through therapy and you try a bunch of different things out in your life, you may find that you get to the root of the anxiety and you resolve it a little bit. And then the high performance, like it's not that it's not there anymore, but it's driven for the right reasons rather than some of the wrong ones, if that makes sense. It's more back to being aligned with, I'm doing this because I truly want to, because this is exciting, not I'm doing this because I have anxiety and I need to get away from the anxiety or I am afraid that I'm going to look like I'm failing if I'm not trying as hard as I possibly can. So those are a lot of the reasons behind that high performance. But, to give the motivational pieces, again, right, like it's really a summation of what I just said is for folks that are listening, if your high performance comes in that flavor of sort of anxiety tinged, sit down with the anxiety for a little while. Ask yourself, like, hey, anxiety, like what message are you trying to teach me or show me? And then see if you can incorporate whatever that answer is into your life. And then also make sure that you're aligned with the things that you want to do, the life that you want to live, and let that pull you forward rather than letting the anxiety and the fear drive you so much.
Yeah, no, that's exactly perfect. Perfect. I want to switch gears. I want to talk about your book a little bit and the logo behind it. So, or I don't know if you'd call it the logo. Let's just call it the graphic. Were you the one that created it, or did you have someone else create it? Or what was the inspiration behind it?
I have a friend who's a graphic designer, and he came up with it. I essentially, right, like I wrote my first book, which is Get Out of Your Head, a toolkit for living with and overcoming anxiety. And we had a different cover, and a couple things happened. And, I'm going to have to mince my words a little bit here just to be careful, but you'll see where I'm going with this is. So I put out my first book. I didn't feel as though I had a cohesive brand, if you will, right? It was more like I had a book cover, Okay. And so that was one thing that was weighing on me was like, I would love to create this Get Out of Your Head brand that I can take multiple places, social media, websites, all of that. And then also, a couple years after I released my first book, a different book of the same name came out, and the cover was strikingly similar to mine. And I started getting a bunch of feedback from friends and colleagues and whatnot of being like, okay, that looks a lot like yours. And also, it's getting a little confusing as to like which one is theirs and which one is yours, right? And I even got taken down off of Amazon at one time. Amazon cited that, they thought, and who knows, like, who reported it or if it was a bot or whatever, but they reported that they thought that I was impersonating this other person who came along after me, which was, to put it lightly, that was one of the most frustrating things I think I've ever been through in business.
Well,
and at this point, been through some lawsuits, been through some frustrating things. That was really, really frustrating. So anyway, I went to my designer friend and I was like, look, I want to create a brand here. I also need to start differentiating myself because there's confusion and I just don't think it's necessarily going to work out that well that I try to, I don't know if I really want to go up against a big 5 publisher. They've got a lot of resources on the legal side there, so I'm probably not going to win. So me and my friend sat down and we started thinking about what does the brand encapsulate? What kind of emotions and messages do we want to convey with the brand, with a logo and all of that? And so he read the first book and he was like, look, these are the different messages and emotions that I got from the book. And let's go through a branding exercise to try to narrow in on a logo, a word mark, all of that could encapsulate all of that brand, succinctly. And so that was the exercise. You go through mood boards and, different, you look at other brands that are in similar spaces and you're like, oh, I like what they're doing. I like what this person is doing. Then you start to meld it a little bit. And also you go through different iterations of, hey, look, we have this snake brain, which was the final product, but we tried out other things as well, right? Like different motifs, if you will, of, the idea, get out of your head, right? So some logos that looked a lot more like a door and somebody exiting it or somebody, somebody jumping out of some other thing to be like, hey, the logo is indicative of that getting out sort of thing, right? So fun exercise, the brand is now that encapsulation of essentially, right? It's like, how I phrase it to people is, so I call it the snake brain, and I'm pretty sure that my designer friend came up with that. But, if you look at it, you can kind of see it as well. It's meant to encapsulate a little bit of like, okay, your mind sometimes is not your friend, right? It can be like a serpent, and it can kind of coil around you and, get to that point where it causes you a lot of pain and constricts. And so the idea, it's funny with branding because it's like all these deep ideas, and yet I'm just looking at one little design, you know what I mean? But subliminal messaging of saying, hey, look, your mind can be like a serpent sometimes. And so if we can learn to tame it a little bit, then we can get further in life. So that was one of the big messages. And then there was also a message in there of sort of like punk rock, heavy metal, excitement, energy. You know what I mean? To be like, I want people to look at this logo and be a little scared, but also be a little excited and be like, let's go. Like, we can figure this out. We can tame our minds and we can make good things happen. And so that's the brand in a nutshell.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. Just because from me looking at it, I would put it on the back of a shirt, and I would go in the gym because I don't know, like you were saying, especially with the rock feel and stuff like that. It looks resilient. It looks determined. It looks motivational. It looks a tad bit aggressive as well, but not necessarily in like a I'm gonna kill you type way, but just like I'm gonna get stuff done. That's kind of the way that I register it. And the way that I'm going to call them bolts next to, like, of lightning or whatever, next to the head. I just think it's an all-around really good design. And what you were saying of, like, what it represents, I think that's an outstanding representation of that. So I think you guys did a really, really good job. It was one of the main things that drew me to want to have you be on this podcast and just learn a lot more about you, was just simply something as simple as that. So just continue to rock with that. I absolutely love that. On a quick side note, I do have about 6 minutes left of this, so I wanted to jump into the 5 rapid fire questions with you, if that's cool.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Alrighty. So, what would you be doing different in life if you weren't doing what you're currently doing?
It's a tough question because even though I do the writing and the podcasting and all that, I'd actually like to do more of it. I have a full-time job in software development, have my hands in a lot of different other things, like I own a condo, sit on the board of the condo, do some angel investing into small companies and stuff like that. All things that, one day or another I do enjoy, but come with stress. And I think, right, like, the answer is probably the opposite of maybe what you may have thought initially, which is to say, I actually would like to be doing more of the writing, more of the podcasting. But I will be totally honest in saying that, like, being an author it's a very long tail revenue distribution, if you will, where like to the victor go the spoils. So the authors that the best, they make a decent amount of money. Everybody else really doesn't. So like for me, this is a passion project that I help people with. I do make a couple bucks, but it's very modest. I'd love for that number to be higher, in which case I'd be able to better support myself and do more of the writing. But in the meantime, got to put food on the table, pay the bills, that sort of thing. So.
Got you. Second one, what part of Boston are you from? I'm originally from Massachusetts, so I've visited Boston a lot. So what part are you from? Curious.
Nice. I grew up in Linfield, a small town north of Boston, and then I actually lived in South Boston for about a decade. I'm in Charlestown now, and then might be going back to South Boston after that, so we'll see.
Nice, gotcha. So have you ever lived anywhere else, or has it just been Boston? Or
I lived in Miami for about 9 or 10 months, and it was a good time, but I was 24. We went out too much, we drank too much, and it just didn't feel sustainable. Also, like, I was not in a great neighborhood, and everything was kind of far from that. So after a short amount of time with minimal friends down there and no family down there, it was like, let me just get back to Boston and try to build my network back up and all that. So
I got you. What is one mindset shift that can instantly reduce anxiety under pressure? And what I mean by that is, like, someone that's not experienced with like practicing of like breathing or anything like that, and it's literally just like, I just need a quick thing. Like, simply put, like, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I could give you a million answers for this
I know.
one. Since it's rapid fire, I'll just go with the first one that came to mind, which is to take your focus off of yourself, right? I think about, okay, let's say you're going on a date and you're really nervous. In those situations, and I am only saying this because I'm guilty of this 100 times over, maybe 1,000 times over, is you forget that there's a person across the table from you who is living and breathing and has emotions, right? And probably, maybe not 100% of the time, but there is some level of butterflies in that person's stomach across from you, right? And so when you are totally focused on yourself, you forget about that and you get really anxious, you stay really anxious. When you look across from you and you say, hey, this is a real person with real feelings, and I'm going to focus on them and I'm going to think about them and I'm going to ask them questions and even kind of put it back on them, right? And be like, hey, maybe this person is anxious. Even if they're not, that can be a fun way to get out of your head and stop kind of stewing on what's going on in your mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So I got, let's see. I hate that I don't have the pro version to Zoom yet, just because I should totally get it, because I have 2 minutes left. So is there anything, any projects, any speeches or anything like that that you got going on that I can share with people?
Nothing too new, trying to keep up with the podcasting. And then I have been slowly chipping away at a revised edition of my first book, which at this point is probably going to come out and be like a 10th anniversary edition in a year or two. So working on that slowly, and we'll just see where life takes me. You know, if one of the books starts selling well and then I'm able to lean into it more, then I'd do that. I would love to write another book, but it takes a lot of time. And at the moment, I don't have that kind of time. So that might be further out.
Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I would definitely love to have you on another episode and we can talk more about, either your book or more about this or even a different topic if you'd like. But really appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk about this. And I'll have the episode and everything uploaded very soon, so I'll be able to send you all the links to it. And another thing I do is I put like your websites and your social links all across this so people can go follow you, engage with you, and get your book, stuff like that. So just wanted to share that with you, and yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle. Keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to talking to you again.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
See ya.